The bold heist. Under the shadow of a thick, glowing purple sky, the human team crouched low behind a ridge, watching the alien city below. The air was filled with tension. The mission was clear: infiltrate the alien stronghold and take their children, the most precious asset of their species. But failure meant death. Success meant sending a message to the galaxy that humanity could not be underestimated. The leader of the human team, Captain Raylan, looked over at his squad. Each of them was focused, their eyes fixed on the sprawling alien compound just ahead. The alien city stretched as far as the eye could see, with massive towers that reached into the sky. The guards at the compound's entrance were heavily armed, their advanced technology making them almost untouchable. But the humans were not here to fight. They were here to steal. "Stay quiet," Captain Raylan whispered to his team. His voice was calm, but his eyes were sharp with determination. "Remember, we're in and out. No mistakes." The team nodded in agreement. They had trained for months, learning everything about the alien species they were up against. These aliens, known as the Xal'Koth, had a reputation for being fierce warriors, but they had one weakness: overconfidence. They believed no one could touch them. They believed their children were untouchable. But the humans had studied them. They knew their routines. They knew the layout of their facilities. They knew exactly how to strike. Captain Raylan motioned for his team to move. They slinked through the shadows, their footsteps silent against the dusty ground. As they moved closer to the compound, the guards were oblivious to their presence. The Xal'Koth were always on edge, but their arrogance made them believe nothing could happen on their watch. The humans knew their time was limited. The Xal'Koth had advanced security systems in place, but their biggest flaw was underestimating the humans' ingenuity. Raylan had studied the patterns, and they had found a weak spot: a small, unguarded access point in the southern wall of the compound. It was a chance, and they had to take it. Raylan gave the signal. The team spread out, each member moving with precision. They approached the wall, crouching low behind it. The hum of the alien technology was faint in the background, but it only made them more focused. This was it, the moment that would define them. With a single, quick movement, one of Raylan's team members, a technician named Zara, stepped forward and accessed the wall's control panel. Her fingers moved swiftly, overriding the security system. In a matter of seconds, the heavy wall shifted, opening up a narrow passage for the team to slip through. "Go," Raylan whispered. One by one, the humans entered the compound, their hearts racing. They could feel the weight of what they were about to do. The alien children, their target, were housed in the highest tower, behind reinforced doors, and guarded by the most elite of the Xal'Koth warriors. But the humans were prepared. They had studied the structure, and they knew exactly how to reach the nursery. The team moved through the dark hallways, careful not to make a sound. Every corner was a potential danger, but they were experts at staying hidden. Their breathing was steady, but their minds raced. Time was running out. Every second that passed made the mission more dangerous. As they neared the nursery, they encountered a locked door. It was the final barrier between them and their goal. Raylan nodded to Zara, who quickly went to work on the lock. Her tools clicked and whirred as she hacked into the system. The door's security was sophisticated, but Zara had been trained for this. She was a master at getting into places she wasn't supposed to be. "Almost there," Zara murmured, her brow furrowed in concentration. Raylan kept his eyes on the hall, every nerve in his body alert. They couldn't afford to be caught now. They had come so far, and failure was not an option. With a final click, the door to the nursery slid open. The team quickly entered, their eyes scanning the room. Inside, dozens of alien children were sleeping, their strange, silken skin glowing faintly in the dim light. They were young, fragile, and innocent, but they were the key to a larger plan. Raylan nodded at his team. "Get them ready. We don't have much time." One by one, the humans carefully gathered the alien children, lifting them gently into secure transport pods. The children stirred slightly but did not wake. Their confusion and fear were obvious, but the humans had no time to explain. This mission was bigger than any one life. As the last child was secured, the team moved back toward the exit. The mission had been a success so far, but they were far from safe. That Exalcoth would soon realize what had happened, and when they did, all hell would break loose. But for now, they had won the first battle. They were almost there, but as they reached the exit, a loud alarm sounded, echoing throughout the compound. That Exalcoth had discovered the theft. "Move, now," Raylan shouted. The team sprinted toward the wall, their hearts pounding. They had no choice but to fight their way out if they were caught. The battle for their lives had just begun. The humans had taken the first step in proving to the galaxy that they would never be underestimated. But as the alarm blared louder, Raylan knew that the hardest part of their mission was still ahead. The capture of the children. As the alarm echoed through the alien compound, the humans moved swiftly, their hearts pounding in their chests. Every second was critical. The once silent hallways were now filled with the sound of boots rushing to confront the intruders. But Captain Raylan and his team had anticipated this chaos. They were prepared. The nursery was eerily quiet, the soft hum of alien technology the only sound as they worked. The children, each one from a different species, lay peacefully in their beds, unaware of the looming danger. Some had faces like porcelain, others with scales or shimmering eyes, but all shared the same vulnerability. Raylan glanced at his squad, their faces tense but determined. They had trained for months for this moment, and now it was time to act. The humans moved in synchronized steps, ensuring nothing was left to chance. Every child was carefully lifted and placed into transport pods that would shield them from the harsh conditions outside the compound. Zara, the technician, was the first to react to a sound. A faint click echoed from the hall. It was the unmistakable sound of alien guards approaching. Her eyes widened, signaling to the team. "Hurry," she hissed. The squad worked faster, their hands moving with precision and skill. They knew they had only minutes before the guards would arrive, and once they did, the alarm would trigger full-scale lockdown procedures. They had no intention of getting trapped in the compound. Raylan looked at the pods, then back at his team. His voice was steady, despite the pressure mounting. "One more," he said, referring to the last child still asleep in the farthest corner of the room. It was a risk. The child was the youngest, smaller than the others, and probably the most fragile. But Raylan had already made up his mind. No child would be left behind. As Zara and another team member, Caden, carefully approached the child, Raylan scanned the room for signs of any incoming threats. The tension in the air was thick. Each second felt like an eternity. He could hear the distant footsteps of the alien guards growing louder. There was no time to waste. Zara bent down carefully, lifting the child gently into her arms. The child stirred slightly, but remained asleep, blissfully unaware of the danger. Suddenly, the unmistakable sound of alien voices echoed from the hallway. "Move," Raylan ordered. Caden and Zara rushed toward the exit, carrying the child between them. The others followed closely, their footsteps quick and precise. They knew the only way out was through the same narrow passage they'd entered. But as they approached the exit, a low hum filled the air. The alien security system had just been activated. It was too late to go back. The Exalcoth were onto them. As the door to the access tunnel began to close, Captain Raylan's heart skipped a beat. They were almost trapped. "Zara, get that door open," Raylan barked. The technician rushed forward, pulling out her toolkit. The seconds stretched out, each one bringing them closer to being caught. Outside, the compound was beginning to stir with activity. The Exalcoth were sending reinforcements to the nursery, and the sound of distant gunfire could already be heard. Their mission was no longer a quiet heist. It had turned into a desperate race for survival. Zara worked fast, her fingers moving like lightning. The door's lock clicked open, and with a loud hiss, it slid open, revealing the way out. "Let's go," Raylan shouted. The team sprinted into the narrow tunnel, moving swiftly but quietly, knowing that their escape was far from guaranteed. Behind them, the sound of alien voices grew louder. The Exalcoth were closing in. Captain Raylan glanced back for a split second, his mind racing. The children were safe for now, but they couldn't afford to slow down. There was no telling how long the aliens would give chase, or what traps awaited them in the tunnels ahead. They had come too far to fail now. As the team moved deeper into the compound's maze-like tunnels, they heard the unmistakable sound of alien footsteps and the loud clang of a metal door slamming shut behind them. The humans were on the run, and as Raylan led the way toward the extraction point, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of something much bigger. That Exalcoth had just realized that they were not invincible, and humanity's message had been sent loud and clear: do not mess with the humans. Alien panic. The humans had barely made it out of the nursery when the alarm's shrill tone echoed throughout the compound. It was the sound of impending doom. The once calm facility was now alive with frantic movement, as the Exalcoth realized the unthinkable had happened. Their children had been taken. The first signs of panic spread like wildfire. Alien officers, normally composed and calculating, rushed through the halls in a frantic search. The central command room, usually filled with cool-headed strategists, was now chaotic. Their prized young were missing, and no one knew who had dared to break into their strongest hold. Raylan's team moved swiftly through the winding tunnels. They kept their pace steady, but the weight of the mission had shifted. Now, it was no longer about the heist. It was about survival. The Exalcoth had no tolerance for failure, and the humans had just stolen their future. "Raylan, we need to hurry," Zara whispered, her voice tight with worry. The sound of boots grew louder in the distance. The Exalcoth were closing in. "We're not far," Raylan replied, his voice low but resolute. "Keep moving." The plan had always been simple: get in, take the children, and leave without detection. But now that they were discovered, there was only one way out: fight their way through. As they approached the exit tunnel, the sound of alien voices grew louder. Raylan glanced over his shoulder, his instincts telling him they were running out of time. They had to get to the shuttle and leave the planet before the Exalcoth could regroup. But something was different. The sound wasn't just coming from one direction anymore. The Exalcoth had set up a perimeter. They had been anticipating an escape attempt. "We're being cornered," Caden, one of Raylan's most reliable soldiers, muttered. "They've blocked the exit." Raylan cursed under his breath. This was bad. The tunnel was the only route out, and if the aliens had sealed it off, they were trapped. But Raylan had never been one to give up easily. He scanned the area, looking for another way out. His eyes narrowed as he saw a maintenance hatch above them. "Up there," Raylan shouted. "Zara, open that hatch." The team quickly moved toward the hatch, but the tension was thick. Zara, always calm under pressure, grabbed her tools and began to work. The minutes stretched, every second drawing them closer to discovery. Below them, the sound of alien soldiers stomping toward the tunnel was unmistakable. They could feel the rumble of heavy feet above them. "Come on, Zara," Caden growled. The hatch finally clicked open, and Raylan motioned for the team to climb up quickly. One by one, they scrambled through the narrow opening, barely managing to avoid detection. When everyone was in, Raylan pulled the hatch shut, leaving the alien soldiers below cursing in frustration. The humans were out of the immediate danger zone, but the sense of relief was short-lived. The hatch led to a small, dimly lit maintenance corridor. It was a tight space with walls that seemed to close in around them. They had no idea where it would lead, but it was their only option. "Keep moving," Raylan ordered, his voice steady despite the mounting pressure. He could hear the hum of alien weapons charging in the distance. The Exalcoth weren't just going to let them escape. They were going to hunt them down. "Do you think they'll stop chasing us?" Zara asked, her voice tense. "No," Raylan replied, his gaze steely. "They won't stop, and neither will we." They moved through the corridor quickly, with no idea where it would take them. The walls were lined with strange alien technology, but there was no time to examine it. They needed to get to the surface and reach their ship. They had no backup, no reinforcements. This was a one-way mission. But even as they hurried, Raylan couldn't shake the feeling that something bigger was at play, that Quetzalcoatl were no ordinary enemy. They were vicious and resourceful, and the fact that they had been able to corner the humans so quickly told Raylan that they weren't just hunting for their children. They were hunting for something else. Revenge. The humans were no longer just thieves. They had become a symbol of defiance. As they rounded a corner, Raylan saw the exit to the surface. The sky above them was dim, but the glow of distant stars filled the sky. Their ship was just beyond the horizon. "We're almost there," Raylan whispered, the words like a lifeline. But just as they thought they were safe, a blinding light flooded the corridor. The sound of heavy boots reverberated, signaling the arrival of the Quetzalcoatl elite forces. They had no choice now but to fight. The aliens strike back. The moment the bright floodlights lit up the tunnel, Captain Raylan knew they were no longer fighting for an easy escape. They were fighting for their lives. The Quetzalcoatl had arrived, and they had brought everything they could to ensure the humans wouldn't leave with their most valuable possession, their children. Raylan didn't hesitate. "Take cover," he shouted as he pushed the team to the side, hiding behind large metal pillars and strange alien tech that lined the narrow maintenance corridor. The hum of weapons charging filled the air. They had no time to lose. The alien forces, led by a commander with a dark, intimidating helmet and glistening armored plating, stormed into the hallway, scanning for the humans. Their weapons were sophisticated, pulse rifles designed to tear through steel, capable of disintegrating almost anything in their path. Raylan's team was outnumbered, but they had one advantage: their agility and understanding of their surroundings. They had the element of surprise for just a few more moments. "We need to make a stand here," Caden, the toughest member of the squad, growled, his eyes locked on the approaching Quetzalcoatl forces. His hand gripped the hilt of his energy blade, ready for combat. Raylan held up a hand, stopping his team from rushing in. He could hear the Quetzalcoatl soldiers speaking to each other, their voices sharp and angry, but they were still too far away to engage directly. Raylan knew that once the Quetzalcoatl realized they were dealing with the humans who had taken their children, they wouldn't hold back. "Zara, Caden, set up an ambush," Raylan ordered, his voice calm but filled with urgency. "We're not winning this with brute force alone. We need to outsmart them." The two soldiers nodded and quickly moved into position. Zara, the tech expert, accessed a control panel along the walls, hacking into the station's power grid. Within moments, she triggered a surge of electricity, causing the lights to flicker and the room to hum ominously. Meanwhile, Caden set up an improvised barricade with scrap metal and pieces of alien machinery, creating a choke point where the Quetzalcoatl would be funneled. Raylan and the rest of the team took their positions, ready to spring into action. The tension was unbearable. The sound of alien boots grew louder, their steps echoing down the narrow tunnel. Raylan could see the commander's dark silhouette in the distance, moving forward with calculated precision. He was clearly the leader, likely the most skilled in combat among the Quetzalcoatl forces. It would be a challenge to take him down, but Raylan didn't have a choice. "On my mark," Raylan whispered. The moments stretched on. The Quetzalcoatl moved closer, still unaware of the human's presence. Then the commander raised his hand, signaling for his forces to stop. He must have sensed something wasn't right. The humans had been clever in avoiding detection up until this point, but now the aliens were prepared. They were ready. Before Raylan could give the signal, the Quetzalcoatl burst into action. The commander shouted an order, and immediately, Pulse fire began to light up the dark corridor, sending sparks flying from the walls. "Now," Raylan shouted, and the trap was sprung. The humans fired back quickly, their weapons aimed with precision at the alien soldiers. Zara used her handheld device to hack into the compound's security system again, causing the walls to shudder, making it difficult for the Xal'Koth to advance. The humans fired their stun rounds, temporarily disabling several of the aliens' heavy weapons. But the commander was quick. He was like a shadow, moving faster than the others. Raylan barely had time to react as the commander launched himself into the fray, his pulse rifle aimed directly at Raylan. The blast hit the wall beside him, sending a shockwave that knocked him off his feet. The other humans fired back, but the Xal'Koth were relentless. "We need backup," Caden yelled as he ducked behind the barricade, taking shots at the incoming aliens. Zara didn't hesitate. She dashed forward, pulling out her energy blade, engaging with the closest alien soldier. The clash was brutal, but Zara's skill was unmatched. She fought with a focus and grace that left no room for doubt. This fight would be hers to win. Meanwhile, Raylan and the rest of the team regrouped, moving back to the entrance of the tunnel. The Xal'Koth were closing in from all sides, and it was becoming clear that they would have to fight their way to the shuttle. The element of surprise was gone, and the alien forces had regrouped. But Raylan wasn't about to let them lose. He was determined to get the children to safety, and he knew that they couldn't just run. They had to make a stand here if they had any hope of escaping with their lives. "Stay focused," Raylan barked, rallying his squad. "We push through, we get to the ship, and we take back what's ours. We will win this." The battle raged on. Sparks flew as alien weapons collided with human defense shields. The air was thick with smoke, and the sounds of combat filled the corridor. The humans fought fiercely, but they knew they couldn't keep this up forever. The Xal'Koth were powerful, but the humans were more determined. They wouldn't back down. Not now. Not ever. As the chaos of battle unfolded, Raylan's mind raced. They needed a way out. And soon. The humans' unyielding spirit. The sound of gunfire and explosions rang in their ears as the humans pushed forward, their faces set with determination. Every step they took toward the exit felt like a victory in itself, each moment a reminder of their will to survive. But the Xal'Koth weren't giving up. They were relentless, and every corner of the compound was now a battleground. Raylan's team was tired, their energy dwindling, but they were far from beaten. The battle had been fierce, but they had learned one crucial thing. The aliens underestimated them. The Xal'Koth believed they could win by force alone, but humanity's strength came from something deeper, their resilience, their refusal to give up. Caden fired back at a group of approaching aliens, his energy blade flashing in the dim light. He took down one of the soldiers with a swift strike, his chest heaving as he took a moment to reload. "Raylan, we're running out of time," Caden called out, his voice sharp. "They're everywhere." Raylan nodded, his face grim. "We can't keep fighting like this. We need a way out, and we need it fast." He glanced at the rest of the team, each of them looking battle-worn but unbroken. Their resolve was stronger than ever. Zara, moving swiftly between cover, hacked into the facility's communication system. Her eyes flashed with determination as she worked her way into the security protocols. The team could feel the tension growing as Zara fought to break through the system's barriers. "They've got the entire compound locked down," she muttered, sweat dripping down her forehead. "But I'm finding a weakness. Just a minute longer." Raylan didn't have the luxury of waiting. The Xal'Koth were closing in, their forces multiplying with every passing second. If they didn't act soon, they'd be trapped. He turned to the team. "Form up. If Zara can't open that escape route in time, we fight our way out." "Understood," Caden said with a grunt. The air was thick with tension as the humans prepared for what might be their final stand. They had come so far. They couldn't lose now. Zara's fingers flew over the console, and with a sudden flash, the security grid powering the compound's exterior defenses flickered. The hum of the force field surrounding the compound died down. For a brief moment, the entrance to the outside world stood wide open. "I've got it," Zora exclaimed, a relieved smile breaking through her focus. "Exit's clear." Without wasting a second, Raylan gave the order. "Go, go, go." The humans sprinted toward the exit, moving in tight formation. The air felt fresher as they approached the outside world, but they weren't out of danger yet. Behind them, the sound of alien soldiers rushing to intercept them was growing louder. The Exalcoth weren't done. They would chase them to the ends of the galaxy if they had to. As the humans neared the shuttle bay, Raylan's thoughts raced. Their shuttle was waiting, but it wouldn't be long before the aliens figured out where they were headed. They had to get there first. "We're almost there," Raylan said, his voice steady despite the urgency. No turning back now. Just as they reached the open bay doors, the Exalcoth commander appeared. The towering figure blocked their path, pulse rifle in hand, his helmet gleaming in the dim light. His soldiers flanked him, closing off any possible escape route. "Not so fast, humans," the commander growled, his voice filled with fury. Raylan's team stopped in their tracks, weapons at the ready. The humans weren't afraid of death. They'd faced worse odds. But they weren't about to let the Exalcoth make them suffer for their success. "You've lost," Raylan said, his voice low but filled with defiance. "We've taken your children, and now we're leaving. The galaxy will know what happens when you underestimate humanity." The commander's face twisted with rage. He raised his rifle, but before he could fire, Zara leaped into action. With one swift move, she tossed a stun grenade, temporarily disabling the aliens' weapon systems. In the chaos, the humans opened fire, pushing the aliens back. Caden sprinted toward the shuttle, his energy blade flashing as he cut down the nearest alien. Raylan followed close behind, firing his own weapon to cover their retreat. The rest of the team kept up the pressure, forcing the Exalcoth to retreat. They couldn't hold their ground much longer. "We're clear," Caden yelled as he reached the shuttle. Raylan gave a sharp nod. "Everyone in. Now." One by one, the humans boarded the shuttle, their hearts pounding as they prepared to lift off. The shuttle's engines roared to life, and they shot into the sky, leaving the alien planet behind. As the Exalcoth commander watched from the surface, the humans disappeared into the blackness of space. His soldiers were left to wonder how such a small, seemingly insignificant force had managed to cripple the might of their empire. For the first time, the Exalcoth realized the true nature of their enemy. It wasn't just the humans' technology or their weapons. It was their unyielding spirit, their will to fight against all odds, and their refusal to surrender that had broken them. The humans had proven one thing beyond doubt. No one could challenge humanity and win. The turning point. The human shuttle streaked through the vast emptiness of space, the Exalcoth homeworld growing smaller with each passing second. But even as they accelerated toward safety, a gnawing feeling lingered in Captain Raylan's gut. He knew that the Exalcoth would not let this humiliation go unchallenged. The battle for their children, their pride, had only just begun. Zara sat at the communications console, her fingers flying over the controls. She had been quiet since their escape, her face bathed in the dim glow of the shuttle's dashboard. Raylan could tell that her mind was racing as much as his own. "They're coming for us," Zora said, breaking the silence. "I've intercepted some of their transmissions. The Exalcoth are calling in every ship in their fleet." Raylan sighed. He'd expected this. The Exalcoth would never allow such a breach to go unanswered. They would hunt the humans down, and they would make them pay for what had been taken. The question was, what would the humans do now? The silence in the shuttle grew heavy. The crew exchanged nervous glances, but none of them said a word. They had done what many thought was impossible. They had defied the Exalcoth, stolen their children, and escaped with their lives. But now, The real challenge lay ahead: survival. The humans would have to outthink their enemies to keep the Xal'Koth from destroying them all. Suddenly, the communication system buzzed to life. It was a direct transmission. Raylan's heart skipped a beat. "I never thought I'd be speaking with you, Captain Raylan," a voice said through the static. It was a deep, guttural voice. The voice of an alien commander, unmistakable even through the distortion. Raylan's mind raced. Was this a trap? Were they being lured into a confrontation they couldn't survive? "This is Captain Raylan. Who am I speaking with?" Raylan replied, keeping his voice steady, masking the tension in his chest. The voice on the other end didn't hesitate. "I am Commander Xeric of the Xal'Koth fleet. You've taken something of great value, Captain. And now you will return it. If you do, we can negotiate your survival. If not, you will die." Raylan's eyes narrowed. He had expected this. The Xal'Koth would come for the children, and they would do everything in their power to get them back. But Raylan wasn't one to back down. "Your children are safe," Raylan said, his voice firm. "And they're not going back. You've shown the galaxy what happens when you overestimate your strength. Humanity will not be bullied." There was a pause on the other end, and when Xeric spoke again, his tone was colder than before. "You misunderstand, Captain. This is not about just the children. You have taken the future of my people. I will make sure that your entire race pays the price for your insolence." The transmission cut off abruptly, and the shuttle fell into an eerie silence. The crew knew that the aliens had made their threats clear. This wasn't just a fight for the children anymore. It was a war. Raylan turned to his team, the gravity of the situation settling in. "Prepare yourselves. The Xal'Koth won't stop until they've gotten what they want. We have to be ready for anything." Zara, her face pale but determined, looked at the screen. "I've traced the source of the transmission. They're tracking us, and they're sending a fleet in our direction. We've got a little over an hour before they catch up to us." Captain Raylan nodded, his mind working quickly. The Xal'Koth had underestimated them once, and he wasn't about to let them do it again. They needed a plan, a way to outmaneuver a much larger and better equipped fleet. "Zara, I need you to scramble our ship's signature. Make sure they can't trace us directly." "On it," Zara replied, her fingers flying across the console. "I can mask the shuttle's energy signature, but it won't last long. We need to be moving, and we need to be fast." The shuttle lurched as the engines roared to life, the crew bracing themselves for what was coming next. Captain Raylan knew that this was their last chance to get away. If they didn't act now, they would be caught in the open, and there was no telling what the Xal'Koth would do. The plan was risky, but it was their only option. They had to create a diversion, something that would throw off the Xal'Koth's pursuit long enough to make their escape. Raylan glanced at Zara, then to Caden and the others. They were ready. "We'll hit the asteroid field in the next system," Raylan decided. "We'll use the debris to hide our ship and make a false trail. It's our only shot." Caden grinned, his eyes gleaming. "Let's give them a fight they won't forget." Raylan's heart steadied. There was no turning back now. The humans had already shown the Xal'Koth that they were not to be underestimated. Now it was time to prove that humanity could outthink them too. With the coordinates set, the shuttle veered into a sharp turn, heading toward the asteroid field. The crew braced themselves as the ship accelerated, the stars stretching into streaks of light ahead. Behind them, the Xal'Koth fleet was closing in, but Raylan had no intention of going down without a fight. They were about to lead the Xal'Koth into a trap they wouldn't see coming. As the shuttle rocketed through the asteroid field, Raylan couldn't help but smile. They might be outnumbered, but they were about to show the Xal'Koth that humanity was a force to be reckoned with. And no matter what happened, they would never back down. The final showdown. The shuttle sped through the asteroid field, the cold expanse of space around them, dotted with massive chunks of rock and debris. The Xal'Koth fleet was still in pursuit, But now Raylan had the advantage of terrain. The tight, twisting paths through the asteroid field would make it nearly impossible for the larger alien ships to track them without risking a collision. The human shuttle dipped and swerved, narrowly avoiding asteroids as it shot forward, the engines roaring with unrelenting power. Raylan's eyes never left the controls as he expertly piloted the shuttle through the treacherous maze. The team was tense, fully aware that the Exalcoth would stop at nothing to destroy them. "Zara, how are we doing?" Raylan asked, his voice tight with concentration. Zara's fingers moved quickly across the control panels, her brow furrowed in concentration. "I've masked our signature, but it won't last long. They're closing in, and their sensors are too advanced. We need to make this last long enough for the plan to work." Caden's voice broke in from the back. "We've got to give them a reason to hesitate. If they chase us straight in, they'll just keep firing. We need to draw them in, make them think we're cornered." Raylan nodded. "Get ready, everyone. It's time to show them exactly what humanity is made of." They were headed straight for the heart of the asteroid field, where the debris was thickest. The plan was risky. Lead the Talkov fleet into a chaotic region of rocks and rubble, and then turn the tables on them. If everything went right, they'd be able to create a deadly environment that would give them a chance to escape. As the shuttle approached the densest part of the field, the Exalcoth were only a few minutes behind. Raylan could see the massive shadow of their lead ship looming just past the nearest asteroid. Their enemies were closing in quickly, and time was running out. Suddenly, Zara stood up, her face lighting up with a quick realization. "Wait, I've got an idea. If I hack into the Exalcoth's comm systems, I can send out a false distress signal. They'll think there's a bigger threat nearby. It'll buy us enough time to slip through." Raylan gave her a sharp look. "Can you pull it off without them realizing it's a trick?" Zara smiled grimly. "I'm not just good with tech, Raylan. I'm great at it." With a few quick keystrokes, she initiated the hack. The comm systems of the Exalcoth fleet suddenly crackled, and a series of false signals were sent out, relaying images of a massive hidden fleet, one far more dangerous than a small human shuttle. The Exalcoth had no choice but to divert their attention. It worked. For a few precious moments, the Exalcoth hesitated, caught off guard by the sudden false distress signal. It wasn't long enough for them to abandon the pursuit entirely, but it was enough to create confusion. As the Exalcoth scrambled to figure out what was happening, Raylan made his move. "Now," Raylan shouted. He veered the shuttle sharply toward a large asteroid, sending it careening into a narrow gap between rocks. The maneuver was reckless, the shuttle skimming dangerously close to the jagged edges of the debris. But it worked. The Exalcoth fleet, still disoriented by the false signal, followed suit, but they couldn't maneuver as quickly as the human shuttle. Raylan's heart raced as he pushed the shuttle harder, speeding through the narrowest corridors of rock and metal. Behind him, the Exalcoth ships were struggling to keep up. The moment the shuttle cleared the cluster, Raylan opened the throttle, shooting out into the open expanse of space. "We made it," Zara said, barely containing a sigh of relief. But the fight wasn't over. The Exalcoth were enraged, and they weren't about to let their stolen children slip through their fingers. As the shuttle pulled ahead, one of the larger Exalcoth ships broke off from the formation, preparing to launch an all-out assault. The shuttle's alarms blared as incoming fire rained down on them. Raylan's hands flew over the controls, evading each shot by inches. They needed to get clear of the fleet's reach before it was too late. "We can't outrun them forever," Caden yelled from the back. Raylan's mind raced. They had a limited window of opportunity, and if they didn't act now, the Exalcoth would overwhelm them. There was only one thing left to do. "We'll have to fight," Raylan said, his voice cold with determination. "We have the advantage. Let's make sure they regret ever chasing us." He turned the shuttle's weapon systems on, activating the pulse cannons and targeting the lead Exalcoth ship. The shuttle's small size made it difficult to hit, and Raylan used every evasive maneuver he knew to stay one step ahead of the aliens. The Xalkov fleet fired back with relentless intensity, but each shot missed, sailing through empty space. The humans weren't just fighting for survival now. They were sending a message. They were fighting for their freedom. And as Raylan fired the final shot, a direct hit to the alien ship's engines, the Xalkov ship exploded in a burst of light, sending debris scattering into space. "Nice shot," Caden shouted. The remaining Xalkov fleet hesitated, unsure whether to continue the chase. The humans had proven their strength, and the damage to the alien flagship was enough to make them reconsider their options. Slowly, the Xalkov ships began to break formation, retreating into the void of space. Raylan watched as the enemy fleet scattered. He knew this was only a temporary victory, but it was a victory nonetheless. The humans had sent a message to the Xalkov. They would not be intimidated, they would not be silenced, and they would not back down. As the shuttle sailed away from the wreckage, the crew looked to the stars. They had done the impossible. They had proven to the galaxy that humanity was a force to be reckoned with, and that Xalkov would never forget it.